Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's presentation, Paralegal as a Service and in Practice. Now, before we begin the official presentation, as usual, we have a couple of housekeeping announcements. The first announcement, you may have noticed that you're currently in listen-only mode. This is to cut down on the amount of background noise so everyone can hear the wonderful presentation. However, you are welcome to ask questions at any point during today's presentation. To ask a question, on your screen, you should still have the pop-up from GoToWebinar. On that pop-up, there will be a button labeled Questions, and we can see that during the presentation, work the questions in, as well as during the question and answer session at the end of today's presentation. So please feel free to ask questions at any point during the presentation. Second housekeeping announcement. Today's session is not for CLE credit. Again, today's session is not for CLE credit. Fastcase does offer CLE webinars. Those are available on the Thursday of the week at 1 p.m. And you can sign up for those by going to our main Fastcase website, fastcase.com/webinars. All right. So without further ado, my name is Erin Page. I will be moderating today's webinar. I am the Senior Law Librarian on staff with Fastcase Legal Research. And with us today is our wonderful presenter, Mandy Bollinger. She is the Director of Operations of Next Chapter and is responsible for maintaining and managing daily operations and development. Before joining Next Chapter, she worked in bankruptcy and foreclosure law for 7 years, as a certified paralegal for a Chapter 13 trustee, where she discovered her love of working in the legal field. And she has an excellent presentation queued up for us today. So without further ado, Mandy.
Thank you, Erin. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Again, my name is Mandy, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about our Paralegal as a Service feature that we have, and really just best practice and a little information about working with services such as Paralegal as a Service. So to get started, Erin did mention I was formerly a paralegal, so I do like to give a little background about myself and how this service came to be. So Next Chapter is bread and butter, is primarily bankruptcy, but we also provide a service element with the virtual paralegal, which is a very easy way for attorneys to work with paralegals on their cases on demand. So as I said, we've started primarily in bankruptcy, and we started offering this service in October of 2018. I initially served as the virtual paralegal for 3 months, and during that time, we developed a process with the technology, and we started to organically grow a network of contract paralegals just from the paralegals who were using our software and who wanted to see if they could join our network and work with the attorneys using our software as well. So they started reaching out, asking how they could join the team. And this was a perfect arrangement because it can be costly for contract paralegals to market themselves and to get connected with attorneys in need. And this was something unique with our service in that we already had a large group of attorneys already using the software that we could offer the paralegal service to. So this service has continued to grow. We now have a network of about 25 virtual paralegals located all throughout the US. And as of almost exactly a year, we actually expanded beyond bankruptcy and into all areas of law. So for today, just a really quick agenda. We're going to talk today about specifically about contract paralegals and just paralegals in general. I do like to touch on that as well. And we'll cover what I think are the best practices for working with a virtual paralegal. And then we'll also discuss specifically Paralegal as a Service, how it works, kind of what it looks like, give you the logistics of it and pricing, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end as well. So before we dive into working with virtual paralegals, I do want to step back and cover the benefits of working with a paralegal generally and in any form. I think it's worth talking about because I've personally worked with attorneys who are solo or just getting started, or maybe just getting started in a new area of law. And when they transition from preparing and doing everything themselves to working with a paralegal, their productivity and really increased capacity for the number of cases they can work on and the clients that they can help really goes through the roof. So I wanted to kind of talk about what I think are the 4 big reasons that the paralegal can benefit you and your practice. So the first big reason is money. Paralegals are paid less than the attorney, yet handle many of the tasks that would otherwise be performed by an attorney. This is especially true in areas of law where there are many time-consuming tasks such as client intake and input into software, drafting standard motions, document preparation. So instead of spending time on these tasks, economically, your time's better spent growing your firm and trying to gain new clients. The second significant reason is efficiency. Your practice will become more efficient. I think it's fair and safe to say that you didn't go to law school because you're an incredibly organized type A person. Correct me if you're wrong, but that's kind of been my personal experience with working with attorneys. And if that's the case for you, hiring a paralegal to keep your cases on track is going to be invaluable for you. Paralegals schedule ongoing follow-ups. They track all the information needed. This is what they do, and they do it well. Having a good paralegal is going to help you have peace of mind that none of your cases or clients have fallen through the cracks. The third big reason, experienced paralegals make it their jobs to know as much as they can so that they are as useful and as beneficial to the firm and to the attorney as possible. And they also pride themselves on being very skilled with specific areas of law so that they can be a quality resource for you. Many are niche-based, and so they can really help you if you're looking to move to a new area of law or an area that you're not as familiar with. They spend much of their time working with the courts, clerks, software, support teams, trustees. You know, they truly become assets for the firm with their practical knowledge that sometimes you don't learn in law school. So they have learned all this over time, and they can also be an extra set of eyes to notify you of any red flags they see while working on your cases based on their many experiences as well. And I think the fourth big reason that of many reasons that using a paralegal can really help you is your client relations. So depending on your area of law, your clients may be coming to you in a very stressful and physically or emotionally tough situations. So paralegals are usually on the front line, working directly with your clients in these hard times, and they do it daily. They have really learned the skills to be kind and empathetic and to keep your client progressing forward in their case as well. So let's talk about the reasons to work specifically with a contract or an on-demand virtual paralegal. So the first thing I wanted to go over is the costs. And we're talking about looking at the average cost for having a paralegal full-time in-house versus what it could look like to work with a contract paralegal. So giving a very rough estimate that is really going to vary by where you live as well. But looking at, salary, you have to include taxes, fringe benefits, and your direct and indirect overhead. This is the average cost of working with a paralegal through our service, kind of broken down for a comparison. So looking at the in-house, this is going to include things such as allocated portions of rent, secretarial support, and a lot of indirect costs such as supplies, technology, utilities, social activities, insurance, business taxes. That's really all going to be included in, and it's not going to be necessary if you're working with a contract paralegal. So if you worked with a contract paralegal for 20 hours per month, which actually doesn't sound like a lot, but you would be amazed at the amount of work a paralegal could do when they are working on a very specific task for your firm. it breaks down to a really big, huge cost difference. And you're also going to save money by not having an office and equipment. The paralegals use their own internet, phones, computers to work with you, the courts, and your clients. And it can also be a pass-off cost. You can bill clients for the entire cost of the contract paralegal as well. So some other benefits for working specifically with a contract paralegal. So you'll have reduced risks from things you can't control or they're unknown. This isn't a very hard thing to comprehend after we've all had to make major adjustments to our work and personal lives during the pandemic. These unknowns heavily impact the amount of work that your firm could receive. So when you're paying for the work you need, for the work needed and completed, that really reduce the risks of overstaffing or understaffing. This is especially helpful if your area of law has peak seasons and downtimes. And a contract paralegal can also help if a staff member is suddenly on leave, or if they're going to be out for a specific amount of time, but will be returning at some point. So instead of hiring a person in-house to just replace them temporarily, contract help is a much more efficient way to fill that gap. Another huge benefit of working with on-demand help is the amount of time you can save. So contract paralegals are already vetted, trained, and ready to get started. I know many attorneys that need help, but have pushed it off for years because they don't have the time required to recruit, interview, onboard. Really, they don't want to spend their time with a lot of those HR tasks. That's not for everybody. So this is something that can really help you to get started right away and bypass a lot of that because we're doing it for you. And working with contract paralegals versus in-house can really help boost your firm's productivity. So this is, I thought was pretty interesting. According to a 2016 survey of about 2,000 UK office workers, over the course of an 8-hour workday, the average employee works for about 3 hours. So it was actually 2 hours and 53 minutes to be precise. So why pay an employee to surf the internet, chat at the coffee station, do a lot of those things that fill the day, where virtual paralegals are very highly motivated. They rely on attorney and client satisfaction to be hired again for future cases. So now I want to focus on, this is a commonly asked question, what does the virtual paralegal do? Paralegals can do a lot. So much so that it's easier to outline what they can't do versus what they can. They generally can do everything the attorney can do except the following. So accepting the cases and setting the fees in the beginning. They're unable to give legal advice to your clients. They can't plan strategy. They can help you implement and again, provide those red flags based on previous experience, but they can't formally plan the strategy as well as making legal decisions and then taking depositions and appearing in court on behalf of the client. They can assist with those things, but they can't do them solely on behalf of the client. Our paralegals are trained and hyper aware of the risks and limitations of what they can do so that they avoid the unauthorized practice of law, commonly referred to as UPL. The biggest key in avoiding UPL is that the paralegal is always working under the direct supervision of the attorney. So we really, the service of paralegal as a service is helping with the onboarding, initial vetting, continued quality assurance, and making sure that everyone's communicating and really providing the software, which I'll get into here in a little bit. But at the end of the day, it is still the attorney's work product, and the paralegal working on their cases is under the direct supervision of the attorney. So most of this presentation, I have focused on the benefits of contract paralegal help and how they can really do anything that an in-house paralegal can do. But obviously how you work with a contract virtual paralegal is going to be in a different format to how you would with an in-house paralegal. So it does take a little adjusting. Something that, maybe 2 years ago when I was kind of giving this presentation, it might be a little bit more of a stretch to understand, but I think having gone through this past year might not be as hard to comprehend, as we've all had to make these adjustments in one way or another with how we work with each other. So I do think virtual work relationships are something we're all learning and growing on, and it's something that we had started on pretty early on prior to the pandemic. It is something to constantly look at and evaluate and try to figure out what are the best practices, and how can I be my best version in doing this.
Andy, if you
So
don't mind, before we continue, we do have a couple of great questions from the audience, and then
sure.
we'll see some of these best practices together. So the first question we have from the audience, you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that next chapter began with a focus on bankruptcy law and then expanded from there. Can you speak to some of the areas that your paralegals work with or in, such as do they work in immigration law, or would they be of use to an immigration lawyer?
Yes, absolutely. So we do have a pretty wide range of skills within our network. Specific to immigration, we do have paralegals that are very skilled in immigration. I know specifically they are skilled in family-based petition and applications, immigrant and non-immigrant visas, as well as removal, defense, and asylum. That is something that we do get requests for with immigration, as it is pretty similar in format to bankruptcy. So it does really work well with the flow that we've kind of already established with bankruptcy. But beyond that, we have had many attorneys use the service for probate and estate planning, a lot of family law, a wide variety of family law cases, some IP, and really a wide, like I said, it's a pretty wide range. So if you are curious to know, do we have a paralegal in our network skilled in what you're looking for? At the end, I'm going to provide a link where you can just do a quick inquiry to us and let us know what you're looking for. We can set up a call too, and we can discuss your firm's specific needs, and most likely we'll be able to pair you up with a skilled paralegal in our network.
Fantastic. All right, so let's hear about some of these best practices.
Perfect. So let me go through. So these are kind of based on my experience. I've managed both in-house and contract paralegals. So this is kind of what I consider to be some best practices. This one I think applies to both in-house and contract, but is especially important in a virtual setting. You know, the key to successful utilization of a virtual paralegal is through clear communication and developing a working relationship. So what I think one of the best things that you can do early on working with a virtual paralegal is establishing your preferences. This will just remove a lot of unnecessary frustrations or annoyances and will make for a very clear working path. Letting the paralegal know your preferred method of contact, preferred time of day for contact. You know, you're not working in the traditional 9 to 5 with this. So it could be that you would prefer a different time of day, and same with the paralegal. So really connecting on that, I think, is very important. It's a very small thing you can do early on that's going to reduce a lot of headaches later on. I think it's important to also create a check-in schedule. So asking the paralegal maybe to send a weekly or a bi-weekly status update for all pending cases. You can establish that through email, through Zoom call, just really trying to lay that out early on so that the expectations are clear. And when you first work together, I would suggest just doing this over a 10 to 15-minute call to establish these expectations. And that's going to set the foundation for an efficient workflow together. And you may find as you go that your workflow is going to require some adjustments after trying it for a period of time. That's okay too. You know, what's important is that the preference and desired changes are clearly communicated instead of becoming an unnecessary issue later on. Which kind of leads me to my next suggestion, that being clear is being kind. This is the advice from Dr. Brene Brown, who I love. So as much as they would like to have the power or a crystal ball to do so, the paralegals cannot read your mind. So as they learn your working style, they will do their best to anticipate your needs, but try not to take that for granted. Communicate issues you see right away. So instead of letting the issues build, it's good, to address those as soon as you can, early and often. Many times issues can be the result of miscommunications, and talking about the issue right away makes it really a non-issue. And I think this is really key in virtual paralegal work. Paralegals are tough and they appreciate feedback. They take pride in their work and they want to make sure what they're doing is done to your liking and satisfaction. So they would rather know what's going on and fix it than to have it blow up and be an issue later. Another key thing about feedback, here's some ways to make sure that it's constructive. Remember that a working relationship's organic. It should continue to grow and change. So maybe after your first case or first few cases, schedule a quick Zoom call and discuss it with the VP to talk about what went well and what could be improved for the next time. There's always going to be room for improvement with the process. And remember to talk about what went well too. If the paralegal knows you were really happy about something they did in the case, they can make sure that that step is built into the process for all cases moving forward. Next, remember that technology is your friend. Hopefully, many of these products on here are familiar to you. So making sure you're using the tools that are available to help you have open communication. And we're in a virtual conference right now, so you can see the importance of talking with each other and being able to have that as close to an in-person type of experience as possible. So I would recommend doing things like a Zoom call or a Google Hangout versus 8 or 9 lengthy emails back and forth. It really can save you some time and kind of create more of a personal relationship too. And so now I wanted to move into kind of talking specifically about paralegal as a service. So first I wanted to talk a little bit here about pricing, and then we'll get into what it would look like using this service through our software. So the service is done at $50 an hour. It is an hourly basis with a 5-hour minimum package. This is for all areas of law with the exception of bankruptcy. As I said, that is our bread and butter. So bankruptcy is actually done on a per case basis. So it starts at $300 a case and it goes up just based on the case type and what type of needs you have within that case. So to use Paralegal as a service, you would actually sign up for a free account at nextchapterbk.com. And here's where you would purchase a package. I would say, if you want to try out the service and you have a case or a situation specific that would be ideal to start with, purchase a minimum package because time can be added later on for any projects that extend beyond the original purchase. So when you get started purchasing a package, we ask you how many hours of the service you would like to purchase. And then you would actually create a case and request the paralegal onto that case in Next Chapter. So you can create a case in Next Chapter for any area of law. Again, even though we started as bankruptcy, we have expanded beyond that. When you work on any case type that is not bankruptcy, you're just going to have a case that has all of our light CRM tools. And one of those tools is the paralegal communications. And I'll kind of go into that here in a second. But when you're in the case, you can go ahead and say, okay, I would like to have the paralegal help me with this probate administration and estate planning. That will trigger for us to reach out to our network and get a paralegal assigned. Once they are assigned on their case, we do have the ability to communicate directly in Next Chapter. It's kind of like a little chat tool here between the attorney and the paralegal. And what's nice is it actually sends an email to both anytime a new communication is posted in here. So you'll never miss that. A good way to document and keep track of things. But again, nothing beats talking to them on the phone or in a Zoom chat as well. So when the paralegal is very first assigned onto your case through Paralegal as a Service, they're going to reach out to introduce themselves, through a phone call and see if you would like to have, something other than email. If you don't have time for that, that's perfectly fine. We just encourage it. It's a nice way to introduce one another and to get started on the case. And then the software also helps with tracking of time. The paralegal will have their time tracked in here, and they're going to include descriptions for all the work that they do. So on the left-hand side here is just a little preview of what the tracker looks like, so the attorney could go in at any time and see what's being worked on. The key with the technology element of this service is that we want to make it as transparent and efficient as possible. And then on the other side here is just like a preview of what it would look like if we were to generate you can easily generate a PDF with a breakdown of the time that's been worked, and this actually gets sent to you as well with a breakdown through email. Okay, and this is where I have some additional links in here to help you if you would like to, learn more about it or even get started. To get started, like I said, nextchapterbk.com is where you'd want to create an account. We also have a link here. If you want to talk to us specifically about your firm's needs and what this would look like for you, we are happy to schedule a call with you. And this is a calendar link that you can pick a time that works best. And then this is our email as well. So if you want to email us and talk with us that way, that's perfectly fine. You can email us at paralegal@nextchapterbk.com.
Fantastic. Well, we have quite a few questions now, and I hope you don't mind. We'll go ahead and dive into those.
That sounds great.
So the first and most popular question is regarding liability and malpractice. So of course, as attorneys, everyone is concerned about protecting their clients' interests and also meeting their ethical duties. So for the paralegals who are part of the program, do they have separate malpractice insurance, or is there malpractice coverage as a part of the program?
The paralegals are not required to have any type of malpractice insurance. The duty does still lie on the attorney because, again, the paralegal will always be under the direct supervision of the attorney. Nothing will ever be filed or submitted beyond the attorney without approval of the attorney. And that is a very specific step that we require is documented within the case in next chapter as well. Additionally, the paralegals, when they are onboarded into next chapter, they have a confidentiality agreement, which applies to the software in any case that they're assigned onto for the attorney as well. And then the attorney, when they purchase, they will have a service agreement which outlines the duties expected of the attorney to communicate with the paralegal and provide supervision and approval and guidance for any step of the way.
Fantastic. The second question, also a practical one. Are there any geographical limitations to the services? Is there a particular state or a particular location that can't use this service, or is this available for anyone?
This is available for anyone. The only limitation would be, if you have a specific jurisdictional need that we just happen to don't have a paralegal that's skilled in. That's where I encourage, just to reach out and talk with us. And a lot of times, we're constantly adding paralegals we're vetting and receiving applications and reviewing. So our expertise continues to grow in the types of cases that we can handle. So even if we don't have paralegals that can support your needs now, we may have something later on. So I always encourage to reach out to us and let us know what you're looking for, and we can keep that on our radar too as we continue to add skilled paralegals into our network.
Fantastic. Next question up. Do you have paralegals who are experienced in e-filing documents through the PACER or federal system, things like complaints and answers?
Yes, we do. Almost every paralegal in the network, that's going to be a requirement when we do our vetting, is that they have to have experience and knowledge and understanding and working with the courts for e-filing, even working with the courts if they need to reach out for any information needed, scheduling hearings, any administrative tasks, with the clerk. That's what they're going to be very skilled in, and spend a lot of their time doing. So that is a requirement that to be in our network, they have to know how to do that.
Excellent. Another question about the expertise of the paralegals. You mentioned that you'd had previous users who had requested work in IP. Have you had anyone who's requested patent litigation, or is patent litigation one of the skills that's available with your paralegals?
Yes, I believe so. I would have to double check that. Like I said, there's about 25 paralegals in the network, and we have them all broken down by their expertise. So I don't quote me on it, but that please reach out and I can confirm. I'm pretty sure we do have paralegals with that skill. I just don't know off the top of my head.
Fantastic. So we have a question specifically about the platform. The questioner says that the information in the tracking system looks interesting and very useful for the platform. Is it something that can be transported to another database without making a PDF first? So if the attorney has a particular billing system or a particular tracking system that they use for their invoicing, is the only way that the information can be used as a PDF, or can it be exported to other programs?
Right now, it is only exportable to a PDF. We have something on our roadmap is the ability to use the time tracking in other systems. So that's just like kind of for our software in general, beyond even just the virtual paralegal element. So we don't have that right now, but that is on our product roadmap to be able to feed that data into any other type of tracking or billing that you use, just not yet.
Excellent. Always good to see what's on the horizon.
Yeah.
Another question that came up. Everybody has been more conscious about protecting information, especially in a virtual environment, since so many are working from home. Can you address best practices regarding working with a virtual paralegal and sharing that type of protected information?
Yes, absolutely. We take that very seriously. So the requirements on our end that we have for the paralegals is that all of their communication must be done either through the system in Next Chapter, which is going to send the email to the email that the attorney has designated, and it connects to the paralegal's business email. So they're all provided Paralegal as a Service emails, which are of a higher security. They will never use their own personal emails, just because you are working on more sensitive data, and we do want to have higher security for that. Additionally, they are trained and aware of, just additional practices such as a clean screen policy. So we're all familiar with working in the traditional brick and mortar law firms, a clean desk policy, having password protection, not having anything out that's not locked in a cabinet in case you were to walk away or have anybody nearby. We apply the same to what's on the computer when you're sharing your screen, or if you're having some type of a video call or chat with a client or another attorney, we have a clean screen policy. Nothing should be up on the screen or on your desktop, viewable in any way that is specific to an attorney's case. So little things like that are huge in the way that we have to think and adjust how we work when we're working in these virtual settings like that. And we also require that everything, like I said, is going to be the documents we do like to have stored preferably in our client document storage, which is a section in each case. That has a higher level of security versus emailing it or saving it in other ways. It's just more consistent and a better security to save all of those documents. And that way it allows for collaboration too. So if there's something that needs to be reviewed, proofread, approved by the attorney, if it's saved in Next Chapter, the attorney can view it and download it and do whatever they need to with it. So those are some of the main things that we try to do to maintain high security to protect the client's information and the attorneys as well.
Excellent. So we have a couple of bankruptcy specific questions. Do the paralegals interact with the client if preparing a Chapter 7 petition, or is that something that can be requested of the paralegal?
Yes, so we will ask at the time of purchase if you would like the paralegal to use our client intake tool that's actually included with the fee. So we have My Chapter, which is an online client intake. So that's one way that they can work directly with your client to collect all of the documents and information necessary for bankruptcy, and that really helps speed up the process. But if you have a client that maybe isn't as comfortable with using an online portal like that, or just not as tech savvy, which we completely understand, you can have them just reach out to the client via phone, just to kind of collect that information as well. So we really will adjust to the client's needs for that. And the paralegal is always going to communicate with your client with your approval, and they're going to present themselves as the paralegal for your firm. So they're not going to call and say, "Hi, my name is Mandy and I'm with Paralegal as a Service." Just to avoid confusion, they're going to let them know, "My name is Mandy and I'm with Smith Law Firm, paralegal hired to help work on this case." I will note, we don't do that to try to be tricky. We do that just because we don't want to be confusing. We do ask, and this is in our service agreement when you purchase, that you do relay the information to your client that you are working with a virtual paralegal and that they will be reaching out, just so that there is no confusion and that they're aware as well.
Excellent. The second bankruptcy question. You mentioned the $300 per case fee. Does that cover intake through filing? And is this both for Chapter 7 and Chapter 13? Can you give a little bit more information about that flat fee?
Yeah, absolutely. It does include from intake to filing. And really everything in between there is up to the attorney's preference. So for example, we have attorneys that do a little bit of the intake, and then they purchase the paralegal as a service and have the paralegal kind of take over from there. Or they could have it from, step one of working the case. That's entirely the attorney's preference of their workflow. And it goes all the way through filing and can include filing. So if the attorney explicitly approves, the paralegal can assist with filing the case to the court as well. That is all included in that flat fee. And if any additional work is needed post-petition, if an amendment needs to be filed because, let's say, the debtor forgot to list a debt, or their income has significantly changed and they're in a Chapter 13, you can hire the paralegal to assist with that, since it is less formulaic and a little more unknown on how long the amount of work it could require. That is done on the hourly basis at $50 an hour. And for that, you don't have to purchase a package for bankruptcy. What we do is have the paralegal just track their time, and then we'll let you know the amount of time and bill for that at the end. As far as the fee goes, the Chapter 7 and Chapter 13 starts at $300. It goes up if the 13, if you would like the paralegal to assist with preparing the local Chapter 13 plan, they're happy to do so. That will include the calculator and editor within Next Chapter, and they can help with that plan. That adds an additional $300. And then also, if the case is an emergency, meaning you're trying to stop sheriff sale or a garnishment for your client and you need to file in a day, there is an additional fee for that, just because it will take some rearranging of the paralegal schedule to work on that immediately.
Perfectly reasonable and a great option. All right, next question up. Speaking of skills of the paralegal, do you have any paralegals that are Spanish speaking or could assist with Spanish only speaking clients?
Yes, we do. We have paralegals that can assist with bankruptcy specifically. And then I do believe it does get a little trickier. We don't have a Spanish speaking paralegal for all areas of law. Someday I hope we can. But we do have other paralegals in other areas of law that speak Spanish as well. So we can assist definitely with bankruptcy, but if it's another area of law that you need assistance with a client who's Spanish speaking only, just reach out to us and we can check with our network and see if we can support that need.
Fantastic. Looks like we have a pair of questions also regarding skills. The first question was, do the paralegals know state-specific filing requirements? Things like statements that go with filing, filing forms, things like that.
Yes, they do. So even though, like, for example, bankruptcy is a area that it's federal, it is still very jurisdictional in the way that the filings are done and that the local forms and the nuances that the trustees expect and the judges expect. So that is something that we have paralegals that are skilled in all of the 90, I believe, 4 jurisdictions, including Guam, which is pretty cool. So yes, we are skilled and able to work in any area of law and have the expertise any jurisdiction and have that expertise.
Fantastic. The next question is, do your paralegals have access automatically to a case database, which would allow them to verify citations in court filings and to compile tables of authorities?
So for the technology element, outside of bankruptcy, next chapter would be primarily used for the communication and sharing and viewing of documents, and you can also, schedule in hearings, things like that, very case management tools. If you have additional technologies that you need the paralegal to access to help with your casework, you would actually work directly with them and allow them to have that access to be able to work on that and collaborate with you. So there's no issues with that on our end. We just ask that the paralegal continues to track their time and communicate through the next chapter software, but they can work in any of your preferred software for outside of bankruptcy.
And I'll just put a little plug in here for Fastcase. Of course, most people on this webinar should know Fastcase is a great resource and one that you could make available to your paralegal for that specific purpose, for working on citations and compiling tables of authorities. So minor plug.
Absolutely.
All right. I know we're running close to our time, but it looks like we have a couple more questions. Back to our bankruptcy topic for a moment. The uploading of the actual bankruptcy. Is this something that the paralegals are familiar with and can handle on our behalf? And is this a part of the flat fee package?
Yes, it is. So they can assist with uploading everything. They will most likely do that through next chapter. So we are connected to all of the courts for e-filing. The only exception is if there is, something outside of typical bankruptcy that needs to be uploaded, they are also skilled in doing that directly to the court side as well. But the system is set up and they're all next chapter experts, so they can very easily file everything for you directly to the court site.
Fantastic. And we have a great ending question, which is, when you begin working on a particular case with a particular paralegal, if it goes over the initial block of time or you end up needing them for another situation later, is it possible to continue to work with the same paralegal?
Yes, absolutely. And that is the way that we try to keep your assignments moving forward. So we actually will reach out to you just to kind of check in and see how things are going before your first case is finished. And even beyond that, just to make sure everything's going well, we like to stay engaged with the attorneys to make sure they're satisfied. And then beyond that, we will continue to keep you with that same paralegal because you are building that working relationship and getting to know each other's working styles. And honestly, I love seeing the requests come in, even though we do that and the attorneys know that, they always put a note, I really want to work with a paralegal so-and-so again, because they just really do enjoy working with each other. And I really think having a great paralegal is just invaluable, and they love working with that same person and can really hit the ground running on their cases. So yes, we will definitely keep you with that paralegal and keep things moving forward.
Fantastic, and I agree 100%. A great working relationship with a paralegal is worth its weight in gold. So this has been a fantastic discussion of the platform and of the services that are available. And as Mandy said earlier, there's some really great contact information on the screen right now. So we encourage everyone to take advantage, to reach out if you have any questions that we didn't get to answer today, or if you come up with a question after today's event, which always happens to me, we're still available to answer your questions. I'd like to thank everyone for coming to today's session, but most especially I'd like to thank Mandy for the great information that she has provided. I hope that everyone had a great time during today's webinar, and I hope that you'll join us for our webinar sessions in the future. We have a couple of really great author webinars, practice area webinars, and webinars regarding some really leading practitioners in their fields talking about the field of law coming up in the future. So if you want to see some of our future webinars, please join us at fastcase.com/webinars. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Erin. Thanks for hosting today. I appreciate it.
Have a great one.